My name's Kelsey Harrison. I live in Charleston, South Carolina. I'm about to be 29 years old. And yeah, birthdays are sweeter now, right? So always grateful for another day on this planet. I was diagnosed last May, so a little over a year ago, with stage 2B breast cancer, estrogen positive. My tumor was like 5 centimeters big, and I did end up having cancer in my lymph nodes as well. And, I was absolutely shocked by my diagnosis, as many people are, but at the time, I was 27 years old. As a 27-year-old yoga teacher, I did not foresee that showing up for me at all in life, much less before the age of 30, or to that degree. And, my journey up to that point, I had always considered myself a very healthy person. And you learn how precious health really is when something like this happens. I'm a business owner too. So I have two businesses. I own a yoga retreat business. We do international. I do about 6 retreats a year, international and domestic. I run my own 200-hour yoga teacher training through that. And then I also own a a health and wellness festival here in Charleston. We just had our first festival at the beginning of May. So yeah, it's like my whole life is surrounded by health and wellness. And I have spent, since I graduated college, every single day in a yoga studio or in a gym, working out and moving and drinking my green smoothies and, moving, sweating, doing all the things. And so to be diagnosed when we don't have the gene, we don't have anything like that in our family, it was really a shock and an eye-opener, because I thought I was healthy before, and now I've learned so much about what that actually means to live a healthy life. And it is so much more than just, getting a workout in. It has so many more layers. I have an incredible support system that I'm so grateful for. I have one older sister and then my parents, and we're pretty small, the 4 of us. I got diagnosed and my dad's like, are you going to move home? When are you moving home? Right. And it's like, no, I'm not. I'm going to do this here. I'm going to go through my treatment here. But they were so great, coming down and being supportive through everything. And I have I have an almost 3-year-old son as well. Very big part of my life. And so he, being a mom of a toddler, toddler is actually my favorite phase of life. I've learned he's just so playful and adventurous. But being the mom of a toddler while going through all of the treatment was definitely challenging. Yet he helped me every day to bring joy and gratitude, give me something to fight for. And on the days when I didn't want to get out of bed, he was a big reason to get out of bed, literally to get him out of his bed. It was Mother's Day weekend, and I was practicing on my yoga mat at home. There's the yoga always stepping in and saving my life personally. And I felt my tumor, my lump. Mine was actually a little tender, which normally they're not. It's like less of them, smaller percentage of them are tender, but mine was, and it was very large. I'm like, oh, that's strange. I've never noticed this before. I feel as though I'm very in tune with my body. I'm very aware of what's going on. And I went the next day on a Monday to the doctor, just my primary care. She said, it's probably nothing. It's probably a cyst. It's kind of, you can wiggle it around a little, seems a little movable. So it's probably a cyst, but you should go get an ultrasound tomorrow. So I go to the ultrasound and I go alone because I'm like assuming it's going to be a cyst and it's not a big deal. And so I'm sitting in the chair. I get my ultrasound and they put me back in a waiting room, and she tells me to wait and not to change my clothes. And then they come and they get me again and they say, we wanted to get another ultrasound. The doctor wants to see a different angle. So I go back in, I get a second ultrasound. They put me back in the waiting room. They say, don't change your clothes. And so at this point, I'm like, okay, well, this doesn't seem very good. And the doctor comes again and they say, we actually want to do a mammogram, which we weren't planning to do, but we want to do one right now. So then I get my mammogram then and there. And after the mammogram, they keep me in the mammogram room. And, the nurse sits down with a box of tissues. And I'm like, okay, so you're about to tell me something. And the doctor who comes in and he says, I don't ever, he literally says, I don't ever tell anyone this because we're not supposed to before a biopsy, but I'm pretty positive it's cancer by how large it is, the amount of calcification. You have multiple lymph nodes swollen. I think it is most definitely going to be cancer. It's just an overwhelming initial feeling of like, I feel like I'm going to die. That's the thought, right? I don't want to die. I have a 2-year-old, I have a child, I have so many things left to do in this world, and I don't want to die. And so like just total devastation. And then within the next 2 weeks, I had my official diagnosis, from biopsies and all of that. I couldn't even process what they were saying to me. All I kept thinking was that I had cancer and I didn't want to die. And then and so the first few days, and my parents they flew in the next day. They came straight down, and it was all just a blur for a few days of kind of like going through the motions, getting the tests, trying to, talk to anyone I knew that had some sort of cancer, knew something about it. I'm also like someone who wants to understand what's going on. So I'm like ordered a bunch of books and started reading immediately within like a week of hearing that I was probably cancer. I had already read some awesome books like The Breast Manual and Silver Linings, which are really great breast cancer books. And just, I just was totally going through a fog. And then once I got my official diagnosis, it almost helps having the actual diagnosis rather than like being in the state of limbo, because then how to, what to research, what I can do to move forward, what the path might look like. So like figuring out the plan was really helpful. And until then, those few weeks just felt like I didn't know what to do myself. What am I supposed to do? Work? No. Like I can't focus on anything. So, I mean, I'm so thankful for my yoga practice because I did lean into that, which helps to, create a little bit of space in our minds. But yeah, just lots of fear. Anger also was a big emotion. I feel like that came a little bit later. Initially, it was like fear. And then it leans into the feeling unfair and angry. Angry that like I feel as though I've taken very good care of myself, and why is this happening to me when, like I just not understanding. Definitely. And I had anger for a little while that would show up. And anger is not like an emotion I normally feel. I'm a person who's going to get frustrated and cry. I'm not going to be angry, but I was angry for a little while just at the world and at, life for handing this to me and for changing what my life is going to look like for forever. We started with chemo because my tumor was a fast growing tumor, which most estrogen positive cancers are not fast growing, but mine obviously was. It was very large, and they had no idea why I got it. They're like, maybe it's because your pregnancy maybe played a part in it as well, like having your hormone levels be changing, just different things like that. I ended up doing 18 weeks of chemo, and I did around 14 rounds in those 18 weeks. So it was a dense dosage. I did the AC cycle, the Red Devil, which is normally every 3 weeks, but for me it was every 2. And then immediately after that, I did the Taxol, and so that is weekly chemo. And I was actually, so I did it the first time, the Taxol, fine. The second week, I went into anaphylactic shock and had an allergic reaction to the drug. So my throat was closing up. They had to push a bunch of emergency meds, whatever. They pushed the meds, then they finished the chemo, and I was able to manage it. And then the next time they gave me Taxol next week, I went into anaphylactic shock again. They pushed the drugs. They tried to finish the chemo. They got through like 15 minutes. So it was supposed to be like over an hour and a half. And I once again went into an allergic reaction, anaphylactic shock. So then they were done for that day. This was a very frustrating time. I could not get a hold of my doctor. He was out of town and nobody was giving me answers. I was hounding all of the nurses. And so what they told me to do was to continue with the plan and to go back again for a fourth round, third time that I went into anaphylactic shock, to which my partner, he was like, we're done. Like they pushed the meds, the emergency meds, and there was some nurse, some doctor, a bone marrow doctor on the floor, and she was like, you should try again. And my nurse who had seen me was like, she has gone into anaphylactic shock now like 6 different times. This isn't working. She shouldn't be taking this. So I ended up, then we left, which, I personally, like, they're pushing Benadryl, and when I receive Benadryl through my port, it's like I'm drunk. So I'm like, they're trying to ask me to make the decision while I'm like basically drunk on these Benadryls. It was an absolute mess. I finally see my doctor the next week, and he's like, oh, haven't seen you in a while, makes a joke, and then is like, yeah, you should not have had to do that 3 times. I'm like, yeah, I've been trying to get a hold of you. And he just kind of like brushes over it. So then I get started on, what is this? Abraxane, which is basically like the organic version of Taxol. So they're like, it's just like the other one, but it doesn't have preservatives in it. So, which is just crazy to me that they pump us with preservatives along with the chemo meds. And, he actually didn't even want to give it to me. There was another doctor who brought it up. And he originally said, I don't think we should give that to her because insurance normally doesn't approve it. And she said, well, let's try. And then they did. So, I was learned through this, like, we have to advocate for ourselves so freaking much as patients, and that, like, we need to ask for the best. We need to question. We need to push these doctors because they stay in their comfort zone. So finished up chemo. I started in June, and then I finished at the end of October. And then I had pretty much a month of recovery, and my double mastectomy was on December 1st. So I did a double mastectomy with a lymph node removal. They removed my whole axillary lymph node chain on my left side. So they took out 15 lymph nodes, 8 ended up being cancerous. And thankfully they were able to do a full reconstruction right then and there. Normally they do expanders, and I expected to wake up with expanders, but they were able to get the implants in. So I'm very grateful for that, because that took out another surgery that I didn't have to have. My recovery from that has been really challenging because of the lymph node removal. I think, had it been just the double mastectomy, I would have recovered a lot better. My left side, I have had nonstop nerve pain and cording and just issues. I'm 6 months out, and only in the last 3 weeks have I been able to reach my arm over my head. So, it's taken a long time. And then, I had my surgery December 1st and started radiation end of January, I think, or maybe it was the beginning of February. And so radiation, which I did 16 sessions of radiation all on my left side, and that also messed with what was already trying to heal. So impacted my the lymph nodes, caused more nerve pain, to where like I could not even, nothing could touch my arm. I couldn't wear a shirt with a sleeve. Like, I was in so much pain on my whole left arm. Their plan was like shrink the tumor with chemo, then remove it, and then radiate whatever could possibly be left. And then now I am on tamoxifen, and the whole time I've also been receiving the Lupron shot, which puts my ovaries into menopause. So I would love to have more children in the future. I was not able to freeze my eggs. I was going before chemo started within those few weeks after getting diagnosed, doing shots in my belly, doing all this stuff to try and harvest my eggs. And for some reason, my eggs they're like, you have none. Basically, you have like one egg, and it's not worth it. So yeah, I did not freeze them, but we started the Lupron shot to protect my ovaries from the chemo. So hopefully that works. And then also just to slow down the estrogen in my body, since I have estrogen positive breast cancer. So right now I'm on tamoxifen and the Lupron shot. And then in a few weeks, I will start Verzenio, which is for metastatic breast cancer. And while I don't technically have metastatic breast cancer, since I had so much of the breast cancer and the lymph nodes, they want me to take that for 2 years anyways. I am still with my same doctor, but he's actually about to retire, which is kind of why I didn't switch, because in the meeting that I finally did have with him, he brought another doctor that I will be transitioning over to introduce her, and I liked her. So I'm like, I'm already kind of getting the switch anyways without having to fight for it or seek it out. But it is scary. And I remember one of my friends who also had cancer a few years ago and is still on just maintenance treatment. She was like, I have fired three doctors, Kelsey. You can fire them. They work for you. And at that point in my life, I was so beaten down. And so it's you have to remember that. It is so important to have somebody to advocate for you. My boyfriend, my partner, he just stood up for me over and over and over again, asking different questions and being on top of it. And that is something I am so grateful for, because otherwise, I don't know if you don't have somebody that's there with you when you're going through it, like you said, it is so exhausting. And so to have that support is absolutely necessary. Unfortunately, I'm not the only person that goes through this. So my chemo, I did very well for the first 2 weeks or so. And then, the AC cycle is really brutal. And I would be down for a good week, and then I would start to kind of come back to life. And I think one of the things that once I accepted the fatigue, which was the biggest probably, once I accepted that I'm going to be a sleepy girl and I need to just be a sleepy girl, it was better, because I was trying to push myself. I would be like, okay, I'm going to wake up, I'm going to work, and I'm going to go on a walk, or I'm going to try and do a 30-minute class. And sometimes I could do that, but other times it just set me up for failure. So I really had to practice my energy management, or on days that I have my son, because we share him, his father and I do. On days I had him, I didn't do anything during the day, and that way I could spend time with him when I got him after daycare. And so then days when I didn't have him, I would try and work and then could rest more. So for me, I'm like to be busy and I like to be active. And so I had to really surrender. That was a big word. Surrender and grace were two big things I had to lean into. And so mentally accepting that helped. Nausea, of course, that comes with chemo is not fun at all. I really did not want to just be taking pills on top of pills, which is what they were giving me. Here's some pills to take for the few days after, and here's pills to take if it breaks through. And then if it's really bad, we can give you more meds. I started cold plunging. I bought a cold plunge during that time, which I loved cold plunging before. But I started doing it I probably was doing 3 or 4 times a week, as much as I could during that time, because first of all, it was a space for me to have a little bit of control over myself. I got to put myself into a challenging situation that wasn't cancer. That was one that I was choosing, and breathe through it. Also, it's good for you. And it's okay, if I don't get to work out, at least this makes me feel good, right? It gives my endorphins going. It makes me feel refreshed. And it helped so much too with inflammation and joint pain, and just helping me feel better in my body. So started cold plunging a lot, buying many bags of ice. I lost my hair pretty quick. So we actually did like uh, the day before my chemo started, we went to the beach. We went to Folly Beach, and I had dyed my hair pink actually, and then we went at sunrise. My sister and my boyfriend and I, just the three of us, and they both took turns cutting my hair, shaving my head, and then I actually shaved my boyfriend's head. And then I threw all my hair into the ocean, and we had just such a special morning. It was so beautiful, and the sunrise was perfect. Yeah, it was so special. And so that gave me that control back of, I am going to lose my hair, but this is by my choice. Um, and it helped kind of ease me into it too. So then I had rocked a buzz cut for like 2 weeks, which is funny. So many people were like, who didn't know that I was diagnosed, but oh my God, you should have done this a long time ago. Your hair looks great. I'm like, thanks. And and then yeah, my hair fell out within like 2-3 weeks of the starting my chemo, and I really just embraced my bald head, and I had like some crazy baby hairs left over. I like bought head covers. I never really wore them. I kind of just rocked with it, and started buying a bunch of earrings, and was like, I'm going to wear big earrings. I have like so many beautiful big earrings now. So just like things like that helped me like with my spirit, yeah, I feel like, so that was chemo. And thankfully, like that's the most of the side effects. I feel as though I managed them very well. And I actually ran a whole teacher training while I was in chemo. I did 2 yoga retreats during my chemo. So I was still pushing forward. So continuing to always move your body is great. And then radiation, lotioning like crazy and hydrating, obviously, and protecting it. And really the fatigue hit again in radiation. I was not really expecting it because I was like almost done with radiation when it hit, and it was very intense. The chemo fatigue would like come and go, and the radiation fatigue was like nonstop. So for a few weeks. So it was really just trying to honor that and let myself rest from that. And then like other things that have just changed in my body, I cannot, most of the time I can't stand up without like getting dizzy. So I don't know what that's about, but just trying to manage that. And I feel like otherwise I'm doing very well now. And I think that's also so important to remember, is that like you will get back to yourself, to a new version of yourself to an extent, and whatever that looks like. While it might be really, really hard along the way, you will get there, and it will get better. And I just think when you're in the chemo fog or the fatigue and all of the cancer treatment, it's like, it feels like there is no way out, but there is an out. It is coming. The community aspect of it is huge. Like you get to see the same people on different retreats in different countries, and you're having these in-depth experiences to where it truly is like takes any relationship to the next level, any friendship. And so for me, getting to continue to lead in these spaces while I'm going through my treatment was so powerful for me as well, and provided a lot of healing. And I just think like anytime we do anything challenging with our bodies, whether it's climbing a mountain or it's holding a yoga pose that you want to get out of, or going through cancer treatment, you learn that you can get through it. And so that's a big thing that yoga teaches us, is that you can sit in the hard and then you can come out of it at the end. So it's been huge for me and such a big part. And so like, even if I can't, like I just am able to do down dog for the first time in like 6 months, but I've still been going to classes and just modifying and figuring it out and learning. And yoga is just continues to to hold space for me. It's the practice is ever evolving, and I'm so grateful for it. And my work really helps to fuel me forward. So like it is important for me to work because I am passionate about it, and it is like what I'm here to do. Very much an advocate for yourself, right? If you think something's wrong and they're not listening, go to a different doctor, or, bring in somebody with you. Like if you're a young girl and they're not listening to you, bring in your dad, because they'll probably listen to your dad before they'll listen to you, unfortunately, right? Like do whatever you've got to do to make them listen and take you seriously. And also like don't put it off. Like I've had friends who are like, have reached out since and been, oh, I found a lump. And then I'll follow up with them. Have you gone and gotten it checked out? And they're like, no. And it's like, don't put these things off, because if you can take care of it before it's something worse, that's so great. Also just to try and be more connected and aware of your body, like doing self-checks younger, I think is so important. Or I know it is. And if you are someone who is being diagnosed, or, that happens to you, or maybe you're in treatment and you're listening to this, I say to that, like the way I try and look at it, and maybe this is not the way you want to look at it, and that's fine, take it or leave it, is that I was given this cancer. And so what am I going to do with it? I'm going to use it if I've been given it. So I'm going to impact people through things like this, right? I want to help inspire people, and I want to live a life that has even more appreciation and gratitude. And we get to have this perspective that other people don't get. We get to have this depth in our life because of everything we've gone through, but it gets to bring us to who we are now. And like my boyfriend and I, we've been through more than most married couples who've been together for 20 years. And so we know that no matter what happens, we are going to be by each other's sides. And I just think like it's totally up to you what you make of it. And so can you make something beautiful out of it? Can you make something inspiring out of it? Can you turn it around? And obviously not while you're in treatment, because you're freaking exhausted. So take a nap. I got diagnosed and I was like, I'm going to start a nonprofit. And I'm like, and everyone is like, okay, maybe not during chemo, Kelsey, calm down. But like after, that is still something I want to do. And so, life is going to hand us things, and it's up to us what we do with them. None of us are immune. None of us are safe from it, but that it makes our health even more important. Like still doing those things is even more important. And also just knowing, paying even closer attention to what we're putting into our bodies and what's actually going on in our bodies. Not just like, I don't think my doctor still has spoke to me one time about my eating. And it's like, okay, well, good thing I know how to read books on my own, but the food we eat is so important. And if you drink alcohol or you don't, and what kind of alcohol, and or the quantity, or what else you're consuming. And so being as aware as you can and doing the best that you can. And so it's like, I don't know, it's like adding in the cold plunging thing that I did, which slows the growth of cancer cells also. There's like some loose research studies on it, and there's not a ton, but it's just like, what else can we do? And even then it could happen to us. And so you want to be in the best place possible if it does. And that's where I was grateful that I was as healthy as I was, because I feel as though that helped me manage my treatment well, helped me recover. And if I had not taken care of myself up to that point, it could have been a lot worse. Dying wasn't an option, and I wasn't even considering it. It was just, okay, well now I have to go through this dreadful year plus to live, but I'm going to learn a lot, but I'm not going to die. That's not for me. So, I think I don't know. I think we just we're in control of our minds. We're in control of our perspectives. And a lot of people, don't accept that power. They instead are just like, life's happening to me. And it's like, things happen to you, and then we get to respond. And so, being in charge of the perspective helped me a lot.